Tale of the Wendigo. In the battle against the storm's fury, the sturdy ship was valiant, but it proved no match for the power of the angry sea. The moment of disaster felt like it had been driven in with nature's most vigorous pen. The ship, once an entity, found itself splitting apart, leaving its sea-slogged crew exposed to wild howls of wind and visible fright in the form of towering black waves. And there, in the midst of the disaster, clung a small figure to a small portion of the substantial hull that was the ship. Aranok survived the shipwreck, but he was left unconscious. As soon as the storm eased, he found himself washed ashore, still alive. His little body rested pathetically on the cold, wet sand, a vivid sign that he lacked any assurance of living much longer. The boy was found by a generous lady collecting herbs not far from her village. Her heart broke when she saw the little child in such a helpless state. Immediately, she lifted him in her arms and, without a thought for herself, took him back to her house in the village. Aranok was taken in by the kind woman and raised as if he were her son. She loved him and did her best to see him through to a good life. However, the more she tried to make him feel accepted in the community, the more they closed ranks and treated him with hostility and fear. As Aranok developed into his teenage years, both his size and strength made the other children seem puny in comparison. The village folks grew resentful, their animosity manifesting in unspoken whispers and glaring eyes. Aranok was a truly kind soul, but even for the kindest of hearts, that kind of consistent cruelty from one's own neighbors can transform even the sunniest of dispositions. And so it was with Aranok. By 15, he was no longer his former, sunny, outgoing self. As Aranok grows and develops, it becomes clear to everyone how different he is. His body keeps changing, getting even taller and stronger than before. Every time he looks at himself in the mirror, he can hardly believe what he sees. And it's not just his physical changes that are making him stand out. Something about him is really starting to set the villagers on edge. Regardless of how much love his foster mother offers, the villagers hate Aranok. They blame him for anything bad that happens in their lives. The animosity they show toward him just for existing is powerful. It can be tempting to view the hatred in the hearts of the townspeople as unfounded or ignorant. But when their contempt for Aranok is expressed with such vehemence and pervasiveness, the monstrosity isn't so much in the child or his nature as it is in the way they act toward him. Wanting to fit in, Aranok leaves the village he feels rejected by. He begins a lonesome journey, traveling across all sorts of landscapes. These aren't safe, or at least not always safe. But Aranok's not worried. He's confident in his melancholic travels. He's certain the path he's cutting for himself will lead him to something grand. Decades pass, and in his isolation, Aranok sharpens his abilities. He accomplishes the art of staying alive, his physical power and quickness building with each day's illumination. The solitary young man becomes a brave fighter, toughened and resilient, more than enough to withstand whatever assault might come next. A once quiet community that once ignored him now confronts an overwhelming danger, the ravenous, sharp-clawed Wendigo. This evil giant terrorizes the villagers, reducing their buildings to splinters. They are reduced to begging for help, but is there anyone who can hear and help them? The Wendigo is an awful monster. It lurks in the darkness of the woods. It is a towering, grotesque figure with sharp claws and an insatiable hunger. When it creeps into the village, all peace and happiness are destroyed. Once, the villagers enjoyed peace, but now they live in fear. The Wendigo is responsible for the attacks that go on and on. They can't seem to stop him. The destruction left behind is unspeakable. He is a master at tearing homes apart, demolishing everything inside. And the worst part, he's started to feast on the villagers. All they can do is hide and hope they aren't the next one to be devoured. They don't have the luxury of time. Soon all will be lost. The Wendigo is too fast, too hungry, and too formidable in his attacks. He's winning. The villagers' spirits weaken, and they feel powerless and tiny. They try all the usual methods and all the old charms, but nothing works against the Wendigo. Instead of resting their hope on the village's more experienced hunter, the people grow still more desperate, in that they start to believe they were being punished for their sins, and that their only hope lay in being virtuous. Aranok, who is far from the village, gets word of the desperate situation it is in. Flooding his mind are memories of his youth, the place that molded him, and the woman who raised him as her own. Determined and with an unshakable sense of duty, he makes up his mind to return to the village and confront the monster head-on. When Aranok gets there, he sees that the village is in a state of disarray and fear. The people who were once familiar now seem to be without hope. He must consider the next move carefully. It's going to be a battle, and if he wants to save the people who were once his family, he has no choice but to go up against the Wendigo. When Aranok comes to the village, he sees right away that it is a place of brokenness and sadness. The once unfriendly, fierce villagers look to him now. For what? He is not sure. There is definitely a streak of desperation behind the eyes of all who turn their gazes on him. But Aranok decides that he will not let the fear rampant in the village keep him from facing the Wendigo. He is standing strong and firm. His eyes sweep the evening forest, where the creature hides. The villagers are hushed. Aranok steps forward, with a look in his eyes that says he will keep them safe. He protected them, despite their previous mistreatment. A horrible being, the Wendigo, reveals itself. It is a figure of terrible appearance, its eyes gleaming, and its claws sharp like razors. Then comes Aranok, all his strength and skill called forth. He faces the terrible creature and fights it with all he has. Both the creature and Aranok are formidable. The fight is bloody and savagely fierce. When one hits the other, a resounding blow speaks of terrible might. Aranok has the heart of a warrior, and his abilities as an acrobat and maneuverer serve him well as he battles the Wendigo. It is not an easy fight. The Wendigo is a formidable enemy. Aranok strikes with precision and pierces the foul beast on point, a powerful blow with his sword ending the Wendigo's reign of terror. Aranok has the heart of a lion and is a warrior deep down. This nemesis is not easily vanquished, so the act of accomplishing it confers on Aranok an especially satisfying sense of triumph. He does not need a thank you, and would be bothered if anyone were to offer that almost automatic response to something he had done. As the grotesque Wendigo toppled, the village erupted in enthusiastic approval, completely astonished by the superhuman might of their savior, Aranok. The villagers, who had been enemies seconds before, now crowded around with looks of utter adoration on their faces. They made their way to him in the same slow movements they had when they had encircled the Wendigo at the start. These common folk, they were embracing him now, just as he had wished for, those long years ago. Aranok, who had once been an outcast, now appeared as the savior of the village. Because of his courageous act, the people of the village had come to see him in a whole new light, and had developed a real respect for him. They knew that without him, they would all be dead, and so remade the village into a better, safer, and more caring place. The people had found their leader. Their communal bond had been formed, and Aranok couldn't have been prouder to belong to this moment in time. For other stories as big and filled with bravery between you and me, you should definitely smash the like and drop kick that subscribe button.